We got the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Detroit Lions tomorrow. Must win for Detroit. Honestly, it's a must win for Detroit in these next 3 games if they even want to go to the playoffs. And the Lions still need help on the way to make the playoffs. But if you want to make the playoffs, this is a game you absolutely must get. And this is a game that's going to be at home field. This is going to be the last game at home for the Lions. They're coming off of a loss against the Rams, a Rams team that is obviously, in my opinion, probably the best team in the NFC currently. Really good team led by obviously Matthew Stafford, Puka Nakua. You have a couple other guys that have been really, really key pieces for them, like Devontae Adams. Really, really good Rams team. I thought the Lions played very well in the first half. Obviously, offensively didn't perform very well in the second half. End up losing at the end of the day, which I think a lot of fans for Lions really kind of predicted and really saw coming. I think that was the least likely game that they would win out of these last 4 games. But this is a huge game for the Lions, and this is a real opportunity not only for them to bounce back, but this is an opportunity for them to still kind of be in a position to even have a conversation going forward about playoffs, because this is a Steelers team offensively that doesn't necessarily scare me too much, to be completely honest with you. Now, I know that the Lions defense has not been great, which in itself is a little bit scary. They gave up quite a few points last week, over 30-plus points to the Rams, which the Rams offensively, in my opinion, is so much better than the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that obviously plays a little bit of a factor into it, but this is also a Pittsburgh Steelers offense that, like I said, not really necessarily super worried about rushing attack. They're about middle of the league when it comes to running the ball, even though the Lions have kind of struggled stopping the ball as of recently. Doesn't get a ton of pressure on the quarterback. Now, obviously, the quarterback is Aaron Rodgers, so if you do get pressure on him, he's not going to be a guy that you're going to truly worry about running away from you. But this is a Pittsburgh Steelers offense, like I said, not really necessarily super concerned about them. They're definitely not as good as the LA Rams, which I think if anyone specifically says that they are, I think is completely wrong. But this is a quarterback for Aaron Rodgers that obviously has played Detroit quite a bit throughout his career, has had the upper hand quite a bit throughout his career as well. Not recently, though, which is obviously great, but this is a Steelers team that's going to be out with one of their starting guards. They have a couple of guys on the offensive line that will not be playing in this game, which I think is going to absolutely help Detroit. I think Detroit's going to really need to get a ton of pressure on Aaron Rodgers. But not only that, but I just think that this Steelers team is really going to be very dependent on, obviously, their defense. And I think really the strongest part of the Steelers team defensively is when it comes to their secondary. Their secondary, if you look at just the overall DVOA, their secondary and just coverage is by far their best point. Now, they do a decent job of stopping the run, but if you look at strength on strength, I think it's going to be the Lions' passing attack versus the Steelers' coverage. And I think that's going to be one thing to kind of keep an eye on for, obviously, throughout this game. Amon-Ra is going to be a huge part of it. We saw J-Mo get involved in the Rams games. We have also seen J-Mo not get involved very much. It's about going to be protecting Jared Goff. TJ Watt will not be playing in this game, which I think is absolutely going to help the Lions throughout this game, because if TJ Watt was playing, he's a guy that is obviously a difference maker. So I think that's going to help protection for Jared Goff. And it also should be a game that you get David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs going again. And one thing about Jahmyr Gibbs, while I love him, is he hasn't been consistent. Like, great game, great game, great game. It's always been great game, not really being able to get going, then another great game. So I honestly expect a pretty big game from him. But I also would love to get David Montgomery going a little bit, just because I thought David Montgomery against the Rams were the better running back out of the two, to be completely honest, or maybe the more efficient one. And I know, obviously, offensively, the Lions have a ton of players to feed the ball, and I know that's kind of part of it, but you really need to get the ball to David Montgomery when he's rolling. I think that's a game that he should be able to get the ball rolling a little bit. But this is a Pittsburgh Steelers team that's obviously 8-6. They're kind of always around 500, a little bit over 500 every single year under Mike Tomlin. This is a game that should be absolutely rocking. in Ford Field. This is a game that needs to feel like a playoff game because it truly is one. And yeah, I just don't really see the Steelers coming into Detroit and getting a win, to be completely honest with you. I do have a ton of respect for Aaron Rodgers. I think that Aaron Rodgers has had a great career. I think Aaron Rodgers will continue to do so for the rest of this year. I just don't think he's a guy that really has it as much as he has had in the past. I still think he's accurate. I still think he's a guy that can hurt you, but he's a guy that is obviously not as full arm strength anymore. Now, with the secondary that the Lions do have, that's going to be a little bit concerning for any quarterback that they go up against. Like, you're going to be out your two safeties. Kirby Joseph is not going to be playing in this game again. I don't know if Kirby Joseph will ever play or when he'll ever play for the Lions again. You're obviously going to be dependent on DJ Reed, which was absolutely dominated last week by Puka Nacua, which Puka Nacua is obviously one of the best wide receivers in the entire NFL. And I do think that you have DK Metcalf for the Steelers. Good wide receiver. But, I don't think DK Metcalf is a quote-unquote Puka Nacua, but he's still good. And he's hurt the Lions in the past when he was with the Seahawks. He's a guy that you're going to absolutely kind of keep an eye on for. Connor Hayward is going to be playing in this game as well, former Michigan State tight end. He's kind of like a fullback here. He's going to be one of those guys that if it gets into like a 4th and short or 3rd and 1, he's probably going to be taking the snap. You'll definitely see him get the ball quite a bit. I mentioned Jaylen Warren running the ball. Darnell Washington is going to be an interesting matchup, big tight end. I think you're going to see probably Alex Anzalone and Derek Barnes on him quite a bit. Pat Freiermuth is another guy. Jonnu Smith is another guy. But really defensively is kind of where, in my opinion, that the Steelers team really, truly kind of stands out. And it has to be Joey Porter Jr. Joey is a great corner. And he's a guy that is going to be another kind of key piece for them. And James Pierce, I think, has been really good as well at the other side of the line of scrimmage. So overall, going to be an interesting matchup. I think the Lions do win this game. I think it's going to be a little bit close. I think it might be a little bit uncomfortable. I know that Dan Campbell has been calling plays, and I think he's done a pretty good job of calling plays. I think in the second half he wasn't necessarily the greatest against the Rams. I think he'll be better in this game. But yeah, should be an absolute packed Ford Field. I'm obviously really excited for this game, and hopefully the Lions can get a win, walk away, and have a real possibility of going to Minnesota, maybe beating Minnesota, and then Week 18, it could depend on what happens with the Bears against the Packers. That is going to be a huge game. That's going to be a must-watch game for any Lions fans. Bears need to lose at least one time, and it's going to be interesting to see if that happens in that game. But yeah, Lions do not control their destiny, but Bears loss at any point in these next 2 weeks would absolutely be huge. Lions have to win 3 in a row to get to the playoffs, even to make a possibility. They haven't done that in a long time. It's been back and forth with the wins and losses. They need to get a win here, and I think they do so.